start the recording.
Recording in progress.
Is it gonna go again? Good evening, everyone. Let's try that one more time.
Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock and I would like to open the meeting for our financial plan hearing. All members of council are present along with our CAO, our office manager and our finance manager. And for anybody who is watching or listening, the meeting is being recorded, so you can always go back and listen to it or watch it. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our CAO for the financial plan presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I'll do is I'll share the financial plan now. And before I get started, I wanted to let all those that are watching and as well as part of the recording is our entire financial plan, including this presentation, as well as the open house presentation, as well as videos, as well as a financial plan overview document and other supporting documentation have all been provided on our website for anyone to look at. And if they had any further questions after the presentation or even after today, before the next council meeting, we'd be more than happy to answer any of those questions. Thank you. And then on that, I'll get started with our financial plan for the public hearing. So we'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us this evening. And tonight we're going to walk through the 2026 financial plan, where our tax dollars came from, where they go, and what they're building for our community's future. We'll cover operating capital, infrastructure, debt management, and compare to our neighboring municipalities. So with that, let's start with the big picture. Big picture is this slide gives you the big picture of a total property tax levy. The combined municipal and education portion of the total tax levy is 46.77 million, remaining stable year over year to limit tax volatility, even though the education levy has increased by $1.54 million. The general operating funds of approximately 28.99 million funds everything from road maintenance to emergency services to community programs. Any increase in the total levy is driven mainly by the rising school division requisitions, not new municipal spending. Our general municipal mill rate moved from 9.1 to just 9.2. That's the 1% increase, which is dedicated to the entirely to our 10-year hard surface road plan to increase from going from 1 mill to 2 mills in the future. And this entire plan is built on fiscal responsibility and sustainability, aligning spending, strategic goals, so that you can count on predictable, fair taxation. Now let's look at the diversifying revenue that supports this. We have been diversifying our revenue sources so we're not overly reliant on property taxes alone. That means user fees, grants, service charges, and other streams that build a more resilient financial foundation. One specific change, we're increasing landfill tipping fees to bring approximately $750,000, ensuring users of the landfill pay their fair share rather than shifting costs onto the general tax base. Like everyone, the municipality is feeling inflationary pressures. Fuel, materials, utilities, and contracted services are all costing more. By optimizing user fees and finding new revenues, we absorb rising costs without passing them directly to the property tax bill. A diversified revenue plan also gives us a budget flexibility and supports a mill rate stability while maintaining essential services. Now let's look at the executive summary overall. So as mentioned, here are the headline numbers. On our proposed 2026 operating capital budgets comes to $28.99 million, covering every service you interact with. Municipal taxes and grants in lieu total 10.96 million. The total mill rate sits at just 1% above last year. With that modest increase earmarked entirely for the hard surface road plan, as mentioned earlier. We're also bringing in 18.3 million in other revenues and grants, money from sources other than property taxes. Every grant dollar we secure is a dollar we don't have to ask for. In summary, a responsible budget, significant investment in your community's future, and a commitment to keeping cost management. Let me show you how that breaks down between day-to-day operations and long-term capital. So our spending falls into two categories. The operating budget, 10.96 million, keeps the RM running day-to-day, road crews, fire, emergency services, permits, administration, and general upkeep. The capital budget, 15.71 million, builds the RM's future through major infrastructure, facility infrastructure, and heavy equipment. Everything we do is governed by this financial plan. It funds daily services while investing in multi-generational community and assets through capital projects on the operating side, such as core services like public works, emergency response, and administration. Then ongoing maintenance, the upkeep of infrastructure, equipment, and facilities that prevent small problems from becoming expensive ones. And capital investment, major new infrastructure, facility construction, and large equipment purchases that position our community for the future. We lay this out for transparency so you understand exactly where your tax dollars go. Now let me break down the operating dollars and funds. Specifically, the key takeaway is balance. So infrastructure and protective services are the biggest piece. Roads and spring restrictions management, dust control, grading, regional drainage, culverts, fire and emergency services, bylaw enforcement, animal control, flood protection readiness. Environmental utilities cover garbage, recycling, the Levo landfill, water and sewer operations, weed control, Dutch elm disease management. Community and recreation includes trails, networks, East Beaches, heritage preservation, the St. Clements Activity Center, and community grants and development. Every one of these services directly benefits you, the neighbors, and next we can talk about our capital investments. Our capital investments, this table breaks down our 2026 capital investments by sector. Roads lead to $3.8 million for the 10-year hard surface road plan, funded through reserves and grants along with safety improvements in East Selkirk. Utilities will receive $2.8 million for the St. Clements Reservoir and Wellfield, funded by borrowing and utility rates. Waste management receives $2 million for the Levo landfill, for the Cell 3 environmental compliance from municipal reserves. Recreation gets $1.42 million for phase 1 of the St. Clements facility through borrowing and grants. Each investment has a clear funding strategy. None are surprises. So let's look at the big picture overall for capital. 2026 capital budget of 17.7 million, higher than previous years because we're in an active building phase with roads, recreation, and water infrastructure, all advancing simultaneously. The key figure here, 15.3 million, comes from municipal reserves, significantly reducing our need for borrowing. We do have 12.5 million in new borrowing for key projects, but as you'll see shortly, our debt position is strong and significant capacity remaining. There's also a $201,000 operating contribution bridging the gap. Investment is concentrated in public works, fiscal, fire services upgrades, and environmental and landfill projects. This brings us to our major project pillars. So we have 4 project pillars that drive our capital program. First is the hard surface road capital road program. So year 2 of our expanded 10-year program with a dedicated 1% increase to get to a total of another 1 mil in 10 years. Second, utilities and infrastructure. Bylaw 10 covers the St. Clements Reservoir, Wellfield, and River Pipeline Crossing, while Bylaw 9 of 2025 funds water control and drainage, and Bylaw 6 of 2025 supports road remediation. Third, environment and waste. Bylaw 8 of 2025 funds the Lebo landfill expansion, of which we received $2 million in grants from the federal, provincial government. Fourth, recreation, Bylaw 7, which supports the St. Clements Recreation Facility, which again was supported through grants of $4 million in grants and less than $2 million by the RRM. Each pillar has its own bylaw, funding strategy, and timeline. In the next few slides, we're going to take a closer look at these investment areas. Utility services, so reliable, let me go to the next slide. Reliable water and responsible waste management are fundamental. On the water side, we're focused on the St. Clements Utility Reservoir, well field, and the river pipeline crossing this year, securing the water supply as our community grows and as well as sharing with our neighboring municipalities. The 2026 milestone is completing the water reservoir and establishing those service sharing arrangements. On waste management, the strategic focus is the Lebo landfill, extending its lifespan, ensuring environmental compliance and safe waste isolation. It should be noted the Lebo landfill supports multiple other municipalities who share our landfill. The 2026 milestone is achieving environmental compliance and beginning the Cell 3 expansion. Both investments think decades ahead. Now let's look at the roads and drainage and the infrastructure. We're in year 2 of our expanded 10-year hard surface capital road plan in order to stabilize the cost of our hard roads. In 2026, we're targeting 5 kilometers of comprehensive road remediation along the gravel roads with hard surface road construction on Rebec Road from Donald to Ludwig. This proactive investment prevents long-term infrastructure degradation, mitigates spring road restriction impacts, and secures vital flood protection for all residents. The predictable funding through the dedicated mill rates means we can plan ahead, negotiate better contracts, and deliver better results. Now let's talk about the projects that many have been following closely is the St. Clements Recreation Facility. The St. Clements Recreation Facility is one of the most significant community investments in our municipality's recent history. The 2026 milestone is construction completion and occupancy. We have received occupancy already and are in the process of finishing up the last little bits. This building will be open and serving residents within the next month or 2. What this means for you: expanded local arts, recreation programming, seamless integration with the existing activity center, and increased heritage value for the East Beaches area as well. This facility represents Council's commitment to quality of life, building the kind of community where people want to put down roots. So now let's shift to taking a detailed look at the expenditures as they're distributed across our services. This chart breaks down the expenditures by service area. The funding comes from multiple sources: municipal taxes, provincial and federal grants, service fees, transfers from surpluses, and draws from reserves. Each slice represents a service that directly affects your quality of life. Notice how balanced the spending is. We're not pouring everything into one area at the expense of others. Every department has been carefully budgeted to deliver the services that are expected while staying within our means. The next slide shows what this means on a per household basis. So on a per household basis, this brings the breakdown of the person to a personal level, where we looked at a house assessed that's been upgraded to the 2021 Stats Canada numbers of $382,800 as the average house size, calculated with a proportion of 45%. This shows how individual tax dollars are allocated across the services that residents receive. When you look at these numbers, I think you'll agree, getting strong value for road maintenance, emergency response, waste collection, water and sewer, recreation, and more, all for a very reasonable annual amount. So when we take a look at that, as you can see what the budget is and what that translates to each individual home. Now let's move to this slide, which shows 2 views: the distribution of taxes collected and the total municipal revenue of all property taxes collected. As you can see, 60% goes to school taxes and only 40% stays with the municipality. That's down 2% from last year. So last year, we were at 42 and it was 58% for school taxes. So as you can see, the school taxes continue to rise and are having a direct impact on the proportionate share for municipal taxes. Total revenue comes from municipal taxes, grants, service fees, and transfers from surpluses and reserves. This diversification is deliberate. It protects residents and the municipality from sudden tax increases. An important note for homeowners, residents will still receive the $1,600 school tax rebate directly from the province for their primary residence, and only the primary residents. So let's dig a little deeper into the municipal versus the tax split. So only 40% of your tax bill is directly managed by the RM for local operations, capital projects, and safety. The other 60%, as mentioned, goes to education taxes set by school divisions and the province. The Schedule A breakdown shows the school taxes are roughly $16.5 million in municipal taxes, and while the municipal taxes are just a little below 11 million. Education levies, now 60% of the total, have increased across all school divisions in 2026. And last year was even even more significant increase. Direct and the municipality reduced their taxes by 13% last year, directly affecting your tax bill, independent of what we do municipally. So these increases from the schools are directly impacting the tax bill. Higher education taxes also reduce our flexibility to maintain services without raising our taxes. Residents will still receive that $1,600 school tax as mentioned earlier. So next is keeping costs affordable is its top strategic priority, or sorry. I will go back. My slide's not here, but I will speak to it. Keeping costs affordable is our top strategic priority. This comparison shows St. Clement's mill rate remains among the lowest in our region. Mill rates aren't always a perfect comparison. Average home values, lot sizes, density, and commercial assessments all factor in. But the per dwelling comparison confirms strong value. Note that in 2024, Selkirk introduced a special service levy for police and transportation, totaling about 3.4 mils for 2025. And they've also introduced an additional one for transportation services in 2025. And so the police, the RM faces real inflationary pressures on construction, gravel, fuel, and wage. And council has responded by holding the municipal mill rate at 9.2, with that 1% that was made as a commitment over 10 years, at 1% a year to a total of 1 mil. So if you take a look at that, what I'm talking about is that the St. Clement's is at 9.2, a 1% change. East St. Paul is at 7.876 with a 5.64% increase. West St. Paul has frozen their taxes at 6.296, and Lac Du Bonnet at 10.093 at a 1.97% increase. Springfield is a 2% increase at 9.8. Selkirk, we weren't able to determine the mill rate due to the change in how they modified their mill rate now and collect due to special levies, but they still had a 2.99% increase overall. And St. Andrews had a 9.14 as their mill rate, which is a 1.99% increase. So Headingley went to 5.914 with a 2.82%. So some of our mill rates can't be compared directly as mentioned because they have different tax bases, they have different opportunities to collect from other sources such as industrial and commercial lands that may not be available. So the tax difference is higher for commercial and industrial buildings and properties, but some of them are smaller municipalities. But at the end of the day, when we take a look at a percentage increase, we are the second lowest And I would argue that we are exactly the same as the lowest, because the 1% was a commitment for roads. So the council froze taxes for this year. So with that comes keeping costs affordable is not just the mill rate alone. It's also managing the funds and the funds that we collect from our residents. Keeping costs affordable means managing that day-to-day finances responsibly. This chart shows our progress in fiscal and cash flow management. And starting as of 2020 now, the RM has worked to eliminate interest expenses from operating lines of credit, and you can now see continued progress in reducing that short-term borrowing cost alongside a steady cash balance stabilization. Every dollar saved on interest goes directly towards services. It's a kind of disciplined management that builds long-term stability and gives council the flexibility to respond to challenges as we're facing. With that fiscal discipline in place, let's turn our attention to the debt. And so, as mentioned, provincial policy sets two benchmarks. Debt cannot exceed 7% of the total assessment, and annual payments cannot exceed 20% of the revenue that's collected. In our 2026 budget, we have gone slightly higher in the available debt capacity, and our debt utilized has gone lower because our tax base has also gone up. And so 4.57 of our debt capacity remains. That's over $53 million available borrowing room. That doesn't mean we plan to use it, it just shows that it's proper fiscal management. On the payment capacity, 12% remains available. So over $3.6 million in annual payments is still available. The RM is in a sound financial position, well within both ceilings, which is unusual for most large municipalities. Council borrows strategically and only when necessary, keeping plenty of headroom for unexpected needs. So now let's take a look at the debt itself. Not all debt comes from your general tax bill. In fact, the majority doesn't. General taxation accounts for only 37% of the total debt payment. Local improvement districts, levies across cover about 18%, tied to specific infrastructure projects that are benefiting only those properties. When certain properties request for certain levels of infrastructure improvement, such as roads, such as water and sewer, those properties pay for those services. The balance comes from gas tax grants and utility rates for water and wastewater infrastructure. Council has been deliberate about structuring our debt, so repayment is shared fairly and doesn't fall disproportionately on your property tax bill. So, looking at the broader picture, we use specialized levies for specific infrastructure projects. Repayment costs are spread among properties that directly benefit, ensuring targeted, fair funding. These levies are adjusted annually based on assessed property values, so the burden is recalculated fairly as values change. On our 2026 debentures includes road renewals, the St. Clements Community Building, the Narrow Fire Station, and drainage projects, all essential infrastructure with defined levy amounts that went through the public process. The overarching principle, we borrow only when we must, and we're transparent about every dollar. Now let's look at the different methods that we use to finance projects. So there are four funding methods we use strategically. Cash on hand from reserves. No added tax burden and no interest costs. Short-term loans, such as temporary bridge funding during construction. That's where the line of credit sometimes is used. Grants that directly reduce the final borrowing amount. And then long-term borrowing that spreads the cost of lasting assets across current and future beneficiaries, much like a mortgage. We layer these methods to minimize borrowing and interest costs. Every project funding strategy is designed before it begins, not figured out after. So now let's take a look at our 2026 revenues. This detailed breakdown is where our revenue comes from. Property taxes remain the largest source, but you'll also see contributions from our user fees, grants, transfers from reserves, and service charges. Grant revenue is particularly noteworthy. Every dollar from senior government is a dollar we don't need to collect from residents. This document is publicly available and we're happy to answer questions about any specific category. Now, next is the expenditures. This shows exactly how every dollar is allocated across our operations. And as you saw, we use these numbers to determine what was needed in overall cost by if you were separating it for an individual house. The largest portion goes to services that affect most directly, such as road maintenance, emergency response, infrastructure upkeep. Administrative costs are kept lean, so as much of our tax dollars as possible goes to frontline services. Every number here is a part of the public record. So let's look at some of the other items, which is our capital expenditures. These are the individual projects and equipment purchases in our 2026 capital program. Many are funded through reserve funds, avoiding borrowing costs and interest. Items that involve borrowing have all been put forward through the public hearing process, giving residents an opportunity to review and provide input. Each item represents an investment in long-term health of our municipality heavy equipment, facility improvements, infrastructure upgrades. And the next slide sort of continues on this and covers the capital item overview, funding sources where they vary, reserves, grants, or borrowing, repaid over the useful life of that particular asset. None of these are impulsive decisions. They've all been put part of our long-term capital planning, reviewed by council, and where borrowing is involved, presented at public hearing. So, speaking to specific strategies, there are 3 concrete strategies minimizing our tax burden. First, aggressive grant procurement. Our 2026 grant is $10 million in grants, which is a target is 10 million in grants, which is 10 million that doesn't have to come from property taxes. Second is regional service sharing through partnerships like the Red River Planning District to reduce administrative overhead. Third is strategic reserves management. Paying for projects upfront avoids long-term interest costs. These strategies work together to keep our costs as low as possible while delivering the infrastructure our residents deserve. Let's now compare 25 to 26. So this table compares the 2025 under bylaw 4 of 2025 with 2026 under bylaw 2 of 2026. Education mill rates rose from roughly where they rose from 11 to 12.6 last year. They've gone up 12.78 to 13.89 this year. A meaningful increase set by school divisions, not by us. Our municipal mill rate moves from 9.1 to 9.2, essentially stable. And if you notice the 9.1, that was a 13% decrease in 2025, not an increase. The road reserve levy goes from 1.1 to 1.2 mils, as mentioned in our 10-year plan to make it to go up to a total of 2 mils. Capital expenditures are down from 13.5 million to 10.3 million, reflecting multiple major projects that are underway. The total property tax levy has moved from 44.3 million to 46.7 million. The majority of that increase is driven by rising education levies. There's no doubt about it. Not new municipal spending. Municipal council has held the line with only a 1% municipal adjustment for the road levy. Let's take a closer look at the mill rate comparison and education situation specifically. Education levies have increased across all school divisions, driving significant changes in the 2026 tax framework. These increases affect your total tax bill directly and are completely independent of our municipal budget. We don't control them. Higher education taxes also reduce our flexibility as a municipality. When a bigger share goes to education, there's less room for us to maintain services and infrastructure without it feeling like an overall taxes are going up. Clearly, communication and advocacy with the province are essential to promote a balanced education funding and taxpayer affordability. So let me summarize by these major key highlights. 2026 council continues reducing infrastructure risk through long-term planning. We now have 1.2 mill rates dedicated to roads, generating approximately $1,392,873.90 annually, with an additional 0.1 mil per year over the remainder 10 years or 8 years, building toward a total of 2 mills. We're stabilizing the reserves for capital projects. We're improving cash flow management. We're implementing a 1% mill rate, as discussed, to provide budget predictability, which is really a 0% increase. We're increasing recreation support through reserves, completing the activity center, and committing to a boat launch in 2026. Business communities will continue to receive support of $50,000 towards business improvement zones, plus community and volunteer grants that are increasing. Our on infrastructure next phase, regional water and wastewater projects have been put forward. We're sharing water with St. Andrews and East St. Paul, and sewer services with East St. Paul. Landfill expansion with new cell construction, stabilized fire and public works fleet capital, and an increased budget for dust control, gravel roads, grass cutting, drainage, brushing, and ditching. All things that still need to be done. All of this paints a picture of municipality planning ahead, investing wisely, and let me close with saying thank you for your time and attention this evening. We're committed to financial transparency, responsible stewardship, and building a community that works for everyone. If you have questions about anything we've covered, a specific project budget line item, how are your tax bills calculated, we're here to answer them. This is our community, this is your community, this is your money, and we take that responsibility seriously. Thank you.
Thank you for that. As we have no one in our council chamber, I am just going to ask if anyone online has any questions.
Edwin here.
Edmund, is it okay, is it good for you to speak, or did you just want to put it in the chat?
No, let me go ahead if
Okay,
sure.
sure. Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you to people for it, and CEO Josh, I appreciate the budget challenges our AM has. You know, I know there's a lot bigger picture things going on. I just wanted to bring forward once again, I know you have a copy of this, but it's already, I'll read it out. I am a resident of Yarden St. Clements, joint property owner along with my wife of 455 Nanton Road in the municipality. I have received documentation provided to the public, provided to me by administration in regard to a 2026 financial plan. I was unable to attend the open public house consultation, but I reviewed the video from those proceedings, and all in all, it appears that the task of maintaining a municipal budget has been thorough, and I do appreciate that this is not an easy task. I'm concerned, however, that keys for completion of paving of Nanton Road for myself and multiple residents along the gravel portion of Nanton Road have not been given due consideration of, and have been largely ignored by council. I do appreciate that there has been some explanation, but furthermore, I am aware that the option of the local improvement district is to complete the paving was floated by administration, although specifics are not defined generally, and there has been no local improvement district proposal provided directly by the REM to individuals affected by the Nanton residents, either before or after the same residents petitioning council for action. A local improvement district approach seems unfair, as this is not the case for sections of Nanton Road previously paved from municipal budgets. But as multiple requests, including our 2025 petition signed by the affected Nanton Road residents for completion of the Nanton Road paving project, has not been addressed in the 2026 financial plan. I have to register an opposition to the budget in its current form. until it's amended to allow funds for the completion of Nanton Road. Furthermore, I encourage council and administration to review the 2025 petition presented to council and to provide those Nanton Road residents who signed that petition with either an in-person response in a group meeting format or in writing to each resident, explaining the position of council and to communicate the rationale of the local improvement district and what those specifics might be. Just for clarity and transparency, as was discussed during the presentation, it would just be good if everybody was given the same information in one format and at the same time. That's all I have to say, unless you have any questions.
Okay, thanks for that, Edwin. I'm just gonna see if anybody has any questions or comments. Go ahead, Deepak.
Thank you, Mr. Brook. I will comment on some of the statements you've made just to provide transparency and clarity. First of all, when the 2025 petition was made to council, council directed the administration to come back and write policies. As you may recall, in 2025, when the petition was put forward, it was requesting something that was not completed, and that we have gone through at least 3 or 4 council changes since the original paving. And I do appreciate that some people may have felt that there was a promise, but there has been no record of any particular promise, or it's never been in any past budgets. So council last year directed the administration to come back with policies, we created 3 policies to address these specific issues. A policy on the management and maintenance of hard surface roads, which was to maintain and do an asset management strategy, a policy on the maintenance of gravel roads, as well as a policy on the conversion of gravel roads to hard surface roads, to be fair and equitable across the entire RM. Those 3 policies were adopted by council last year after the budget was passed, and once the direction was given, we reported back, I think it was about 3 months later, with a detailed policy. In that policy, it identifies and provides a fair numbering, fair system provided by our public works engineering staff, who would take a look at these roads and determine what are the factors involved. And much like in many other municipalities, we look at roads similar to any other roads, which are collectors, which are major roads, which ones are cul-de-sacs, and what responsibility would it be to pave them. We have many gravel roads, many houses on many gravel roads that are being requested on a regular basis. This was to provide a fair and equitable process and a presentation to be made. I recall, I think you and Mr. Thorne did come and had discussions with council on this factor, and the local improvement district option was floated and shared with council. And as representatives, we were given the indication you did not want to pursue the local improvement district, which was to spread the cost over 20 years, where the RM would borrow the money and put it in place, as they do for all infrastructure. So that's what's been done. I just want to make sure that that part is transparent. If you are requesting us to put forward a local improvement district option, we can certainly do that. So that's never been off the table.
What I'm requesting is that the information you've just shared, and I appreciate that, has been, I'm aware of pretty much all those details. And the problem is that, like, when it was presented, when Mr. Thorne and I presented to council the petition, it was signed by, all but one resident affected by the gravel portion of our road. And sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the problem was that the number of people that signed were made aware that there was a proposal floated for local improvement district, and the majority said that they did not want to, they didn't feel that that was being fair in consideration to the fact of the other portion, 2/3 of the road that, weren't subject to a local improvement district to make that happen. And then when we talk about the scoring and the policies, I have looked at those. And it seems like some of that scoring is weighted against a road such as ours, and maybe any other road that has been fully developed, and it is a dead end road, because it prevents, there's, for future development, it prevents other economic development, other than the generation potentially of, once the road is paved, a number of, homeowners may pave their driveways, for example, which would then up the tax base, which would then come back to the municipality in another form. But all I'm saying is that of the people that signed that petition, it would be nice if the municipality would at least generate a piece of communication that would go back to those that signed, and so that they have, to know what's happening, because regularly people want to know what's happening. We inform them of our presentation to council, and, but I think we're in a sense almost awaiting more, but we never heard anything else directly as residents.
Point well taken, sir. I will take that into consideration. We'll discuss it with council and see if there's any opportunity to do some further communications with the residents and offer this. I hope you can appreciate that there are many situations in the past that roads were built and may not have been charged as local improvement, but there is a point in time that councils must make certain decisions and policies. I'll give you an example. In a municipality such as Winnipeg, you'd think that every back lane was paved, but not every back lane is. Some people have it paved and some don't. And the ones that don't have them paved, even though they may have a front road paved, are now, if they request for that back lane to be paved, are required to do it through a local improvement because it wasn't part of that initial payment. The biggest challenge council has, and we've been working towards, and what this budget has dealt with, is the issues related with infrastructure deficit. There are a significant amount of roads that are hard surface roads, and they need to be budgeted for because they need maintenance and costs. And unless you have a proper asset management strategy without taking on new assets you can't afford, increasing taxes may not be enough, is my point.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edwin. Anybody around the table have any comments or questions? Do we need to mention that these people were registered but did not show?
Yes, certainly I can. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have two individuals that did register that wanted to come and speak. I think they were at the open house. I cannot guarantee, but we do have them. Blair Mowat and Jacqueline Mowat both wanted to show up today in person, but have not shown up, and we had them registered to speak. And again, they were wanting to speak to the same issue, which is the paving of Natton Road. But I think Mr. Brook has represented it very well with his written statements.
Thank you for that, and I guess the only other one is we did have the letter from Mrs. Greenwood.
Yes, Madam Mayor, we also have a letter that's been provided on the public agenda from North Selkirk School Division Board Trustee, and it is from Lena Kublik, and the letter is there, which explains the Lord Selkirk School Division's reasoning for their tax increases. I'm not going to read the letter, it's already available there online, and realistically, the reasoning, in my opinion, of the school division's increase in taxes is something that they should be addressing in their public hearings, not in ours.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else that council wishes to bring forward this evening? If we have nothing else, Caitlin, I'm just gonna ask if you are wanting anything, will you be getting a hold of the office?
I will take that as Caitlin will contact us if she needs to.
If she needs to.
If I have questions, I can reach out, she says.
Oh, okay, perfect. Then I would have to say at this point in time, if no members of council have anything that they would like to share, I would like to adjourn the financial plan hearing at 7:46 PM.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll start the recording.